something you probably don't see a lot of. These are sugar beets. We don't grow them anymore. We did for years, but they have a real waxy big leaf on them, and it's like a big turnip. Essentially, you can see it down there. They grow down there quite a ways. When they harvest, they come through with a topper or defoliator. The guys are clear at the other end of the field there now. But they top them and it shreds the leaves off. See the beets here. And it has the machine. I don't know if I can find a field where they're up closer here where guys are digging. Here's a beet that's kind of kicked out, so they get big. Yeah, they have steel wheels that run on an angle. They go into the ground, one on each side like this, and it basically wedges a beet. And then as it comes up, there's paddles that knock it back out. And since beets are big, they load directly into trucks in the field. And then in town, here in the town of Au Gres, they have them, a beet dump or piling grounds. They're scattered all over Michigan, where you dump them and they'll dump them in big rows. We'll go in there and look, and then it cleans the dirt off the beets in town. That's where all these little piles of dirt are. You got to bring your extra dirt back. And the machine here in the field also cleans the dirt off as well. We quit raising them about, I don't know, 20 some years ago, I would guess. At that time, it was a private owned company, Monitor Sugar was, that we grew for. And then they sold out and it turned into a farmer owned co-op. And when it turned into that farmer owned co-op, prior to that, I would say probably 80% of the farmers in our area grew sugar beets. And when it went into the farmer-owned co-op, I would say half of us quit. And now I'm guessing only 20% of the farmers in the area grow beets anymore. Farmer-owned co-op has not been good. It's typical of a lot of these co-ops. It's not a good idea initially, but they just don't end up well. And the company has made it difficult. You got to buy shares to get into the company, and the company has really made it difficult to get out. And so yeah, that's a big grievance for the people right now that are still left raising beets. Typically sugar beets are grown in Michigan, Minnesota, and North Dakota, some in Colorado, I think. They need cold weather climates to be able to store them through the winter. Yeah, we'll show you the piling ground here in town. They just put them in big windrows. And essentially what they need is the beets to freeze solid in the winter to be able to store them there. And sugar beet plant is about 50 miles south of us. And as they need beets through the winter, they start slicing beets, I think September. They'll do some early dig where they'll just take enough out of the fields that they can process for that day. And then they need beets that are froze solid, so they store outside to be able to slice into the spring. They'll typically end around April, I think.
I usually would see, when I would go to school starting about January, I would start seeing trucks coming out of where they piled them to take them down to the plant to process them.
Yeah, it's typically when they haul out of Au Gres, out of our town here. But they have them all scattered all over these piling grounds that they haul out of. So yeah, we've toured the plant when we used to grow them. Stinks like crazy. I don't know what the deal is. Oh man, you can be miles away from that plant. It smells like something rotten. But so you get white granulated sugar, powdered sugar, brown sugar, and molasses is what they get out of the beets. And brown sugar, of course, is just white granulated sugar that hasn't been processed all the way down. It still has molasses in it. That's why it cakes up and is brown. But yeah, we'll try and find somebody who's digging close. You can see the digger. It takes a lot of manpower. That's why a lot of people are getting out of it. So you typically, a lot of these guys are running six to 8 trucks, semis and some tandems. So you need that many drivers. You need somebody running the harvester. You need somebody running the topper, the defoliator. And then when the piling ground's open, you gotta dig beets regardless. So when it gets wet, you're hooking a big 4-wheel drive on trucks and you're dragging trucks through the field. So you need an extra guy pulling. It's hard on the ground, packs the ground down. It's hard on equipment. You tear rear ends out of the trucks, tear truck clutches out, and so.
One thing, our kids though, they enjoyed that time of the season when they were younger. They used to ride with Al in the truck. Their favorite thing, because when they go through the weigh station, they always got candy, and they also enjoyed eating their packed lunch in the truck. So they have good memories of it. They don't remember how hard it was.
The hardship. It's a lot of long hours. I mean, the beet piling ground would open at 7, close at 10, I think. But time me and my dad fueled trucks and tractors and sputtered the mud off the machines. A lot of times it was around midnight, and then me and Sandra, we started milking cows. So we were getting up at 4:45 in the morning and getting to bed at midnight, and it was hectic. So we don't miss it at all. But it's good money, and the beets are. It's hard to get them up. It's a real small seed, but once they get up, they're super weather hardy. I mean, they can take a lot of rain, and they're pretty deep rooted, so they can do well when it's dry too. So, all right, we'll try and find somebody harvesting and show you around the piling ground. Here's a look at the topper defoliator. Just got rubber flails in there, and flails off the beet leaves. They're loading on the go with semi here. I'll wait till they get a little closer. Hopefully we get a better video of it. Right there you can see those wheels in the front, those rings. That's what actually digs the beets out. And there's a cart there they can dump into on the go. Conveyor on top that takes them across, and then they call that a Ferris wheel. That wheel on the side, that's what actually brings the beets from the bottom up on top to the conveyor. Yeah, right now he's just dumping into the cart till he gets lined up with the truck, and then he'll flip it over and then convey straight into the truck. Here the rocks going through. It's one bad thing. You got a stony field that picks the stones up as well. Then sugar beets float. So down at the sugar beet processing plant, they move the sugar beets into the plant on a plume of water, and that way all the rocks settle out to the bottom. That's how they separate the stones down at the factory. And this truck here just got back from the beet dump, and he's dumping his tear dirt, the dirt they sorted out. Fortunate right now that it's fairly dry, so the trucks are able to go in the field without being pulled. Here's a look at the piling grounds in town. You can see the big windrows of beets. Yeah, they'll fill these yards right up with beets. Lines aren't long right now, man. We used to spend hours down here just waiting to dump. I mean, there were a lot more farmers growing at that time, but yeah, you drive through and they swing them arms around there, and you can see the truck dumping there, the one. And then it cleans the dirt off and conveys them up in the piles. One other drawback to sugar beets when we were raising them, in the years since then, they've genetically modified sugar beets like they have corn and soybeans, where they're Roundup resistant now, so you can spray Roundup on them. But when we were growing them at that time, primarily in our area, there weren't many soybeans growing, so we all grew corn, some wheat, sugar beets, and dry beans. And dry beans are edible beans like navy beans that go into baked beans, black beans that go into Mexican food, pinto beans, kidney beans, the smaller reds that go into chili soup. And a ton of those were growing around here. I think the 5 counties right around the Saginaw Bay here where we live in Michigan grew 90% of the edible beans for the U.S. So, but dry beans and sugar beets, aren't grown a lot across the U.S. So like Bayer and DuPont and these companies that make herbicides for weed control didn't put a lot of money or effort into herbicides for these because they didn't sell a lot of them. So the one thing we did, all those years we were growing up, is we hoed. I mean, everybody hoed. I mean, we hoed hundreds of acres. All these big fields of sugar beets and dry beans, we hoed. We would start hoeing from the time we got out of school until we went back to school in the fall. I mean, that's what we did every day, but we took Sundays off. But 6 days a week, we hoed hours every day. I mean, we would break hoe handles and literally wear hoes out. It just seems crazy looking back at it, but that's just. And the migrant crews would come up from Mexico. A lot of Mexicans came to the area in the summer to hoe. And yeah, it was tough. It was tough work. I don't know how old we were. We were probably 7 years old or something. We started hoeing. We were just little. It was just a way of life for us. Our kids got into a little bit of that. They hoed for some of the neighbors, some dry beans and stuff. But goodness, nothing like we did when we were growing up.
I used to complain when I had to help my mom weed the garden, and I met Al, and I thought I had nothing to complain about as a child.
Yeah, well, goodness, we'd hoe hundreds of acres. It was work. There's no doubt about it. Just a little bit on hoes. This is a typical hoe that you buy at a hardware. These things are basically useless. I mean, you just avoided those things when we hoed. You can't really find a good hoe. You basically can't find a good hoe anymore. These we bought a while ago. These are the hoes we would look for. Wide, straight ends on them, and good heavy handles. But yeah, like I said, they're almost impossible to find because nobody hoes anymore. When I talked about wearing hoes out, this is an example. These hoes started out the same. I mean, that's literally, yeah, there'd be nothing left of these hoes time we were done with them. You can see.
Although this hoe I love to use in my garden because you can get right around the plants and get the little teeny weeds out without hurting the plants.
But you can see the size difference how we literally wear these hoes out from being used in the fields, which is madness.
What do you think?